Hey, what's up, Journeyer? Alright, so I think we got two people in here right now. I'm pretty sure I'm one of them. So I think everybody called it quits. Some people were asking for me to just come on and do a video anyways. So um, I didn't really have much to talk about. We already had a but this one came through. The last one, K-Pro, the last one was just a never-ending nonsense of technical difficulties. So, yeah, I was going to have Arrowhead Junction on, and, I mean, I worked for hours trying to make this work, and it's just this freaking Chromebook. Can't do anything with it. But some people in the chat were saying, hey, like, just stay on and go live anyways. So I figured I already, cleared my schedule, I guess, with the family. They were tracking that I was gonna, do this probably from 8 to 9 or 9:30. So I figured if there was an interest of, of a discussion or if anybody wanted anything talked about, I would come on, go live. I know it's been a while since I made a video. I'd like to think that some people like watching what I have to say, so maybe somebody on here has something that they want me to discuss, and I can just start talking about random stuff. But I hope everybody's been good. I just got back from Fort Bliss. I was gone for a month, and I felt bad because I had more off time than what I thought I was going to have. And instead of making videos for you guys and for me to vent my thoughts and stuff, I just spent a whole lot of time metal detecting and whatnot. But yeah, other than that, we got a whole whopping 5 people in the chat room right now. Is there anything that anybody has been thinking about or have been bouncing around back and forth in their head or whatever? Oh, and K-Pro, I watched your video, yours and Mike's video about the try the wheel. I thought that's pretty cool that you had other people, kind of talking about the same thing. I'm not sure if you're still in here or not, but there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of people in here. Well, hopefully this is still working. Yeah, so that's the I don't know the best way to say it, but that's something that I always thought was, pretty neat, is how you could come to the same thoughts of somebody without ever having talked to that person. That's why I connected so much with RF Hecky. I was talking to Jason Dent or Fenn Treasure Hunter, and I think I was going to like a surplus store or something to buy something for my boots on the ground. And, some of the stuff I was talking to him about, he's like, man, you should really check out RF Hecky's videos. And I was like, who's that? And he's like, I'm telling you, you guys think like exactly alike. You're talking about the same stuff, you're bringing up the same stuff. And I go to watch her videos and I'm like, wow, like the fact that two people that have no connection with each other can come to these same thoughts that aren't something generic like, oh, like a brown mountain or, like a certain hot springs, which, I think is pretty cool. But at the same time, you got to look at the forums and see how many people have like the same solve, or how many people have searched the same area. So maybe it's not as unique, but, is it important because a crap ton of people are thinking the same thing, or is that how you know that it's not special, is because so many people are thinking it? So I debate that sometimes. All right, the Journeyer says the try the wheel idea is a good one. The only question I have is what do you think about the Bighorn Mountains not being the Rocky Mountains, or the whole issue of the north of Santa Fe and the Rocky Mountains? So I forget which mountain range it was, but Forrest Fenn specifically talks about, he says, like, there's debate on if such and such mountain range is in the Rocky Mountains, but it's on the map, therefore it has to be considered. And I'm not sure if that's the one that he was talking about. Maybe somebody would be able to pull it up and see that exact quote. You know what? I'll try it right now. So Forrest Fenn, mountains not in the Rocky Mountains, but on the map. Let's see if I can find it. I mean, that's... I don't think I really had any keywords in that Google search, and I'm not seeing anything that stands out. Somebody has to know what I'm talking about, for sure. But, another question is, if that mountain range isn't part of the Rocky Mountains, then why did Forrest include it on include it on the map? And then another thing is, Forrest says, like, you have to have a grasp of geography. Well, what if Forrest grew up always thinking that was part of the Rocky Mountains? Or what if it was always considered to be part of the Rocky Mountains, but had since been removed from it? Just like, like us thinking Pluto is the 9th planet, and then all of a sudden one day they were like, no, it's not. It's like, well, no, it is, because I grew up my whole childhood learning that way. So it is pretty interesting. Now, there's one thing that I have to say is my research, not a small portion, like a lot of my research brought me in to the Bighorn Mountains. For reasons that I don't necessarily want to get into, just because I haven't totally discounted it yet. But, it was nothing like try the wheel or anything like that. But I have been brought to that area for specific reasons. So, is it coincidence that, somebody named Paul got a hold of K-Pro and was talking about a saw very similar? Mike Calazars found this code that says try the wheel, and it's in the Bighorn Mountains. And then I myself, through other forms of research, have focused pretty tightly on the Bighorn Mountains. Is there a reason for all of that, or is it just, so much stuff connects with one another, so it kind of just happens? I'm not really sure. I would absolutely consider it the Rockies. Let's see right here. Is the Bighorn Mountains part of the Rocky Mountains? All right. From Wikipedia. Okay. The Bighorn National Forest is a U.S. national forest located in northern Wyoming, United States. The Bighorn Mountains, an outlying mountain range separated from the rest of the Rocky Mountains by the Bighorn Basin. So is that saying that it's separated from the Rocky Mountains, or that was just a quick preview? So let's see here. It is one of the oldest government protected lands in the United States. The forest is well east of the Continental Divide and extends from the Montana border for a distance of 80 miles along the spine of the Bighorn Mountains, an outlying mountain range separated from the rest of the Rocky Mountains by Bighorn Basin. So it sounds like it is separated from the Rocky Mountains. In other words, that it is not considered to be part of the Rocky Mountains. Now, some of the Bighorn National... well, hold on. I shouldn't say that. This article is about the Bighorn National Forest. So, it could be talking about that, but it's specific. Yeah, it says the forest is well east of the Continental Divide and extends from Montana border for a distance of 80 miles along the spine of the Bighorn Mountains, an outlying mountain range separated from the rest of the Continental Mountains. So if it's saying from the rest of, is that saying it is part of? And when it says is separated from, is that excluding it from the Rocky Mountains? But nonetheless, like, it's on the map. So therefore, you know, we have to consider it. Pretty much everything that's on that map, you know, needs to be considered. The question is it in those, is it legitimately like the highlighted portion of the map, or is it kind of like where it's like grayed out or whatever, but still like on the paper? You know, like the ghost terrain that's like surrounding the huge, or the legitimate highlighted, you know, contrasted areas. Let's find out. Fenn treasure map. But yeah, I did have, I found a couple things that brought me to that area, you know, and when you see stuff like that, it really makes you consider, for sure. Let's see if I can find a good picture. This is not the good picture. It says Bighorns, so I mean it is right there on like the border of being the highlighted areas, if that makes sense. Okay, what else do we got going on in the chat? Figured I would just talk about some stuff. It is on the map. It is just like, no shit, like right on the right edge of the map. Like almost to the point where it's not highlighted anymore. Could the wheel have something to do with tires? Okay, so when we talk about, you know, try the wheel or whatever, or that wheel that's there, Forrest does have quite a few mentioning of wheels. You know, he talks about the wagon, the gypsies that would come in, and they would have rubber wagon wheels on their whatever you call it, like their little stagecoach or whatever. Then he talks about bike tires. He talks about, you know, flattening the tires. So there's definitely hints towards, I don't want to call it hints, but there is discussion of wheels and tires. And especially when he was talking about, you know, having to push Concy to the lake, and how it was difficult because the whole drive was made out of, the road was like really sandy, and the bike tires would, like, you know, sink down into it, and it made it harder to push. So I don't know, it's definitely interesting. And then the subregions, talking more towards the journey, or the subregions, there's a lot of stuff. You know, if you know, one thing that I always get confused about is Forrest has said multiple times, like, you have to know your geography. But everything that is discussed in the poem is more about geology. You know, like, you know, waterways and the formations of canyons, and, you know, like the rocks and everything else. You know, talking about like how the Rocky Mountains started anyways. You know, one thing to consider is, and I'm trying to word it the best way, because remember, originally Forrest said in the book that it's in the mountains north of Santa Fe. He never said the Rocky Mountains. Okay, so if we have the line that says, begin it where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down, and then you look at the definition of warm waters, and it's an ocean, sea, or large body of water, excluding the Arctic and Antarctic regions. Well, if you look at where the continental divide starts, it starts in Alaska, right there, right there where land meets the Arctic Ocean. So it's where the warm waters halt, like it's cold water, and it goes all the way down near the Grand Canyon. So maybe he's saying begin it in the Rocky Mountains. Maybe he was letting us know that way. So maybe he was cluing you into what geography to follow, if that makes sense. Because you might have been, because originally there was no outline, right? It was anywhere from north of Santa Fe all the way to Canada. But that could have included the Cascades. That could have included mountain ranges in Utah and Idaho that kind of run parallel of the Rocky Mountains, but aren't really the Rocky Mountains, if that makes sense. So maybe that first line, begin it where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down, maybe that was saying begin it in the Rocky Mountains. And the way that you would narrow it down is you'd go, that's where you would figure out your solve for not far but too far to walk, put in below the home of Brown. I have a very good explanation for what I believe the home of Brown to be. But I'm not like a genius or anything and know that that's what it is. I have a home of Brown that seems to make the most sense out of anything else that I've come up with, and especially in the context of the poem. Another thing to consider is, if warm waters halt, if begin it where warm waters halt, and warm waters is an ocean, sea, or large body of water, that would mean that warm waters would halt where the water stops, right? So if it's an ocean, sea, or large body of water, pretty much encompassing like the entire Earth, and we're trying to find the point in where it stops, well, then we would be talking about land, right? Sure, you could say beach, like water stop at the beach or whatever, but it could be saying land, right? And then you say, and take it in the canyon down. Well, if something were to be coming down, it would be landing, right? And if you think of where warm waters halt being land, and now we're applying canyon to it, well, maybe we have canyon lands. And where is that? It's not far, but definitely too far to walk from, Browns Park. So there's something like that. So I don't know. This whole thing has been driving me nuts. I've thought about kind of taking a break from it all, just like Arrowhead Junction was saying. I'm not gonna make any videos anymore, and obviously, a couple other Fenn tubers, took a break and kind of backed away for a little bit, and kind of makes you wonder. It's like, damn, this thing is like taking over my life for sure. What else have we got going on in the chat? It's not the Bighorn Mountains, because that's not where I'm looking. Yeah. We will, I'm not even going to ruin it. Me and Arrowhead Junction, we did have something that should have been a pretty good discussion. So hopefully I can figure out this whole nonsense of my technical difficulties or whatever, so we can have a legitimate discussion of what we think is going on and how we perceive ourselves and everything else. Hopefully I can make it happen. So anybody else have anything that they want to talk about or have ideas thrown around about? So what's that? Rick is going boots on the ground? All right, for some reason I cut out for some reason. I'm assuming that, am I back on? Just so I know. So it looks like Rick is talking, or Illinois Ghost is talking about boots on the ground. And we kind of, okay, and we kind of talked about it on a Gypsy's Kiss or whatever, like the cost of boots on the ground or whatever. If you haven't done a boots on the ground, like it's really not expensive. You know, you always see people saying like, oh, you know, I need, you know, will you partner up with me? I have the perfect solve, and I just need a partner because I can't finance it. It's real if you plan it, and you know, you don't spoil yourself by like staying in a hotel. And this is like if you're driving from far away, like I did. Like I drove from Georgia to Montana, down into Wyoming, down into Utah, into Colorado, and was gone for the stay there was 10 days plus the, you know, the 24 hours to get there, the 24 hours to get back. $700 is probably an over exaggeration of what I spent. And that wasn't my buddy that came with me splitting the cost or anything. That was just like, that was gas to go there and just money like messing around or whatever. And I'm assuming that it is way more, that $700 is way more than what it really was. I would probably say, I would probably lean closer to $500. For some reason, my live keeps cutting out. I'm not sure why. But I was also able to bring MREs with me. If you didn't know what that is, it's meals ready to eat from the military or whatever. But you know, if you don't plan your meals or plan where you're gonna stay, or you know, make a good sort of like a good itinerary and have a good plan set in motion, like, yeah, I can totally see how you would spend a lot of money. But you know, I stayed at not at hotels. I camped instead of staying at hotels. I brought my own food. You know, just stuff like that. And you know, I don't know how many people could say that they spent practically 2 weeks, including driving to the Rocky Mountains, and spent less than $600-700. But yeah, it was a good time. So if anybody hasn't gone boots on the ground yet and they are considering it, and the only thing that's holding them back is that money, then you know, just do some planning considerations. You won't spend as much as what you think you're going to spend as long as you budget correctly. You know, like you could smoke your own meat and have meat that could last you the whole time. Like it's not going to go bad. Just stuff like that. So I'm not sure where, I'm assuming that Rick is from Illinois because his name's Illinois Ghost or whatever, but he's saying it cost me about $300 for a quick trip. So it's definitely doable. So what else is in there? Have you analyzed the picture on page 64? The top of Skippy looks photoshopped to me. Look at the body of the car in the photos. Looks like different cars. Let me check it out. Yep, that is not the book. So yeah, I just got back from Fort Bliss in Texas, and it wasn't I don't know, it's kind of a waste of a month out of my life, but I got paid extra for it and really didn't have to like work my butt off or anything. But at the same time, it was a month removed from my family, and then you know, it was definitely a month being distracted from the chase, but at the same time, it was kind of nice being distracted from the book and the poem and all that. I don't know. I'm curious to see why you think it was photoshopped. Are you saying that that Skippy was photoshopped into there, or that the front half of the car and the back half of the car is two different cars photoshopped together? He does say Skippy in his car. The grin is real. I don't know why he would say the grin is real. Is he implying that something else isn't real? You know, like, hey, maybe it's Photoshop. Now RF Hecky, she has pointed out a few photoshopped photos because she was able to obtain the originals somehow. Like one in particular is this wedding photo or whatever. Apparently the flowers in the one that RF Hecky has aren't those flowers right there. So I don't know. I really don't pay too much attention to the pictures. Maybe I should start like my wife and for there's a couple people that have always had this discussion of what's up with the logs and what's up with the chopped down forest and the tree that's nesting in the moon, like what is that symbolic of and all that. And I've been in on some of those discussions before and never really thought of anything, but this one right here, this maybe this is why paying attention to the photos are important, because a picture speaks 1,000 words. Me and my wife were reading this book and she goes, "Oh, that's so sad. There were no trees left, so the bird made a nest in the moon." And I never connected those two together like that. But Forrest talks about talking about like modernization, like knocking down forests and bulldozing mountains to develop and whatever. Like he talks about Robert Redford, who wrote The Outlaw Trail, and if you read The Outlaw Trail, you would know that they have done the BLM has done a great deal of snatching up people's lands, pretty much forcing farmers out so they could build this and build that and whatever and so on and so forth. And Forrest even talks about the BLM in here, kind of discussing, a distaste for the BLM or the government and how soon there won't be any places to go out and enjoy nature and that type of stuff. So, the fact that my wife brought that up just from the first time looking at it, I was like, wow, how have I never connected that? So yeah, I think it is important to look at the pictures. I just tend to focus more on the literature. So what else do we got? Also, caption says the grin is real. Yep, brought up the caption. Has this been brought up? I've never seen it brought up before. And number 4 in climbing. Oh yeah, time for blue tide. Can you do Skype or FaceTime? So we were using Zoom. I'm assuming the journey is talking to me. We tried Google Hangouts, and Google Hangouts would only show one person. And if the other person talked, then the screen would jump and stuff. But I wanted something that was side by side. So we tried Zoom, and I was trying to use my little on-screen recorder to go YouTube Live. Earlier, it was working fine. So that's why we decided to go with it. And then for some reason, like, everything started going wrong this time. But I've always had issues with Skype. I've never had it to work clearly for me. Now, FaceTime is something that we discussed after I hung up on the last video, but I think the issue is still going to be there about since the FaceTime is trying to use the microphone and the speaker, that means that the on-screen recorder isn't going to be able to use the speaker and the microphone. So that was the issues that I was dealing with. Alright, what other topics we got in there? Jason Alex 1, check your email. I emailed you. Alright, I appreciate it. I will absolutely check it. At Rodney, here's you a solid Homer Brown. Ranger Brown. Home. Yeah, but everybody thinks of Ranger Brown. Like, everybody talks about Ranger Brown. And you would think if that is the home of Brown, somebody would have had to have found it by now. But at the same time, like, who knows, maybe people just don't look good and just walk right past it. Or like Forrest said, they figured out. Another thing that Forrest has never, like, came out and said, where's it at? I'm going to butcher the comment, but he says, some people have been within 500 feet, I know, because they told me exactly where they were. Other searchers have walked or have figured out, how does he say it? He never connects the two, like, some searchers have figured out the first 2 clues and walked right past it or something. I'm trying to word it the right way, but he's not, like, he's implying like it's two different occasions, if that makes sense. Like this person was close because he knows because they never, or because they told him exactly where they were, and then some people have figured out, or some people have been within 200 feet of the treasure and walked right past it, noticing the clues. I don't know how to explain it, what's in my mind. I'm sure somebody could explain it better than me, but I feel like he doesn't connect the, some people have figured out where warm waters halt and walked right past the treasure. I feel like that's not how he's saying it. So, sorry, I'm trying to catch up in the chat. There's a whole lot of Go Blues going on. Okay, somehow I jumped back up to the top. Mr. Bryce says, my first Rodney live. All right, well, I'm glad that you joined my live randomness of discussion. I hate coming on without something to talk about because I feel like I'm just putting out like nonsense content when I do that. But at the same time, I did make a video when I was in Texas, and I meant to upload it while I was there, but it was just a quick video I recorded in my car, and it was, explaining how I felt bad because I'd been metal detecting on my off time instead of making videos, but I didn't really have any ideas to be able to make good videos. So I was asking you guys to leave a comment down below or email me on a topic that you would like to see. If anybody is interested in doing that, would like to email me a topic or something that they would want discussed, or pick my brains on or whatever, or, get my thoughts about it, I would love that, because it is kind of difficult to come up with ideas that aren't just repeating the same stuff over and over and over. So if anybody's interested in it, if anybody's interested in throwing ideas out there, please let me know. Joe just went live too. Oh man, I feel bad. So I'm probably going to wrap this up real quick anyways, because it's not really discussing a whole lot. I'm going to see if there's anything else in here that I think I stand alone in my thoughts about the home of Brown. I really think it can be skipped and the poem can still be solved with no problem. It very well could be. Maybe it doesn't make, maybe it's not anything. Hold on. So something that's been bugging me is Forrest's comment before the poem that says, there are 9 clues that, if followed precisely, will lead you to the end of my rainbow and the treasure. In my opinion, both of those things didn't need to be said, right? Because people know that at the end of the rainbow, there's a treasure. And so if he would have just said, containing 9 clues that, if followed precisely, will lead to the end of my rainbow, we would have known exactly what he was talking about. Or if he would have said, containing 9 clues will lead you to my treasure. Awesome. Even better. But he said both will lead you to the end of my rainbow and the treasure. And it really makes you wonder, why did he say that? Something has got to be, I just keep having this nagging idea that something has to do with a rainbow, right? So, and then he says, give the poem to a child, maybe they might be able to have a better chance at solving it, or something along those lines. So I was trying to think about, colors, right? Or how to simplify it, and how to use the poem and let the poem tell you where the treasure is. So I came up with a color, this color scheme. I have begin, which is synonymous for go or start, right? Green means go, right? So begin it where warm, all right? So for warm, you have 2 colors. You have like orange or yellow, right? Not really red, because red is kind of symbolic of hot, right? And then you have halt, so warm would be, like yellow or orange. You have waters, which is obviously blue. And then you have halt, which means stop, which means red. So right there in the first sentence, you have red, orange, yellow, green. Red, orange, yellow, blue, and green, right? We're just missing indigo and violet, pretty much. And then it says, and take it in the canyon down. So is there a purple canyon or an indigo canyon or a violet canyon or something like that, right? And then it says not far but too far to walk, put in below the home of brown. Well, if we're going off from the color scheme, right, and we're looking at, we just went from red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. Below those colors would be where brown is. Like, put in below is the home of brown. Well, you have red and green that make brown. You have all these other color combinations using the primary colors that form the color brown. So I thought, maybe it's telling us that. So another thing is, warm waters are equated to storms, right? So in order for a rainbow to happen, is the rain ends. You have these millions of water molecules in the air, and the sun that's directly behind it, shining onto it, refracts its image. So in order to get the rainbow, the rain had to stop. So where warm waters halt could be, like sunshine or something, or like a sunny day or something like that. But I have a hard time believing that he said that for no reason at all. Will lead you to the end of my rainbow and the treasure. So I'm going to pull this up just really quick. Colors that make brown. But at the same time, brown's not capitalized. So we're right back in. That's not my solution for a home of brown, by the way. But to mix a brown, you mix a primary with its complementary color. So purple and yellow, blue and orange, or red and green. So all those colors that we had just talked about, the red, the orange, the yellow, the green, the blue, those colors mixed together, the one color, the complementary color with its primary color, that's how we make brown. So it's like, put in below the home of brown. All right. So I don't know, just something to consider, and it's especially with the no comma use after where warm waters halt, because we read it like, begin it where warm waters halt, comma, and take it in the canyon down. But that's not what it is. It's begin it where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down, comma, not far, comma, but too far to walk, period. Implying that all those three lines right there are discussing the same area. So the area that we're looking for is a place where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down, not far, but too far to walk, period. And in order to verify that information, is it lands somewhere below the home of brown. Put in below the home of brown. But when I hear put in, I hear like inserted or built or constructed, like physically put in or built or constructed below, which doesn't necessarily mean south, just like down doesn't necessarily mean south. I believe below to be a layer, right, at a lesser elevation. That's kind of where I stand with that. And Forrest has said, that looks like 4 or 5 clues to me right there. So, is it simply where warm waters halt, canyon down, too far to walk, and home of brown, or is there more? And is it telling a story of how to confirm it? And Forrest says whoever solves the treasure will have studied the poem over and over, analyzed it, and moved with confidence. In my opinion, there's no way that you could do that. There's no way you could move with confidence without knowing where it was before you left. Just like Forrest says, you won't know if your first clue was correct unless you find the treasure. What? you could take that two ways, right? You could take it like I take it one way. Like you're not gonna know if your solve is right. You're not gonna know if any clue is right unless you find the treasure. But then you could ask, well, how could somebody move with confidence then? But I don't think I don't think that it's a I don't think it's conflicting, right? Like I can know all day long of like, let's say I lost my wedding ring or something like that, and I thought of all the places that I had been earlier that day, and I used them as clues to backtrack to the location that was dropped. Well, I'm not gonna know if that path was correct or not until I find my wedding ring, if that makes sense. But I could move with confidence because certain things had reminded me along the way of where I had dropped it at, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Seems like there's a lot going on in the chat, so I'm going to check it out real quick. There's always message redacting. Brown real estate, but is brown real estate going to be there? Okay, so Forrest talked about, well, Forrest didn't talk about Douglas Preston. If you haven't checked out my video yet involving Douglas Preston, I think it was Forrest Fenn Treasure Thoughts, Things Told by Others or something like that. Douglas Preston, I go over Douglas Preston's intro or his foreword to Forrest's Once Upon a While book. And and Douglas Preston talked about how inside of the treasure chest was a stack of $500 and $1,000 bills. And he removed, or oh no, that's not what it was. Well, that was one of the things that what it was, but there was an IOU as well for $100,000 at Forrest Fenn's bank, and that's how he would have known if somebody found the treasure. Once that person goes to redeem the $100,000 from Forrest Bank, Forrest would have been able to see it pulled out, and he would have known. And apparently, he said, "Well, I don't know if my bank is going to be here, you know, when the treasure's found." So he got rid of that idea, but still somehow found a way to make it known to him if the treasures are going to be found. Well, for starters, if you don't know that your bank is going to be here when the treasure is found, well then how are you anticipating that you're going to be here when the treasure is found? But nonetheless, what it's implying is he used stuff that is very likely to be present for a very, very long and extended period of time. So brown real estate, I don't think so. I think somebody said it might have been a joke or something like that. But even something like Brown's pudding, right? That might not be here. Like people will put in wherever they want to, and maybe there's not going to be a place. You know, maybe people aren't going to know who. Maybe people aren't going to know who Ranger Brown was, and maybe it's just something. Maybe it's an answer. Maybe it's an answer that's probably always going to be present unless the English language changes like a shit ton. So, I don't know. This is the stuff I think about. No, that was a joke. Okay, cool. But still, it brought up a good talking point, I think. Let's see what else there is. What's going on? Why must I go? Good to see you in here. I was confident until I arrived at my beehive. Hopefully you didn't get stung up too bad. I really think that a lot of the poem is a metaphor. And like is explaining experiences and not necessarily places. But then it's like, well, why would Forrest say geography? But when Forrest says geography, does he really mean geography, or is he confusing it with geology, or history, or is it a combined total of all three? Geology, geography, history, and whatever else. Another thing to consider is, what if we just need to take this literally, right? Not on a map, but what if we just do what the poem is telling us to do, but all right here on the paper? If that makes, I hope that makes sense. But like, begin it where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down. All right, well, that's where we begin it. But what are we beginning? That's the thing. But what if it's telling us to do something on the poem? To just, what if where warm waters halt is where warm waters halt is written in the poem? What if in the canyon down is where the canyon down is typed in the poem? And what if whatever it is that we end up doing, what if you've been wise and found the blaze? What if the blaze is the word blaze in the poem? Forrest, somebody asked Forrest, is the blaze a single object? And Forrest said, in a word, yes. In a word, dash, yes. That to me sounds like the blaze is in a word. Just something to consider. That's the shit that I think about all the time. It's like, what if that's it? And especially if Forrest is saying that only a few searchers are in tight focus with a word that is key, right? Well, what is that word that's key? Is it blaze? Like, who knows? But what if everything to solve it is the poem? Just reading the poem, and it's boom right there. Playing begin it where warm waters halt. What if we, we're drawing something, right? And we begin it where warm waters halt, and we take that line down into the canyon. We don't go to the not far, because it's saying not far, like don't go here, but connect your line to the too far to walk, and then we bring it here. And then from there, it's no place for the meek. So we know that it's saying, since it's telling us that it's no place for the meek, then we have to skirt around that line. Or what if it's a series of connections, begin it where warm waters halt. So we take that line so maybe we start at cold, right? Your effort will be worth the cold. And then it says, and take it in the canyon down, and then we find the antonym of that, and then, like no paddle up your creek. Just that type of stuff, because the whole poem is conflicting, right? It's just using antonyms the entire time. It's a beginning and an end, an alpha and an omega, a good and evil, a hot, a cold, an up, a down, just that type of stuff. But there's a reason why Forrest decided to use those literary devices. Why did he feel the need to make everything complete opposites within the poem? And then, so if you look up, far, or what is it? If you look up the antonym for far, it'll give you warm, right? So if it's saying begin it where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down, not far, or sorry, A would be cold. All right, so an antonym for far would be cold. So if where warm waters halt, and then not far, so it's saying not cold. So we know that we're not looking for cold water, but we're looking for hot water. In my opinion, there's only two ways to go from warm, right? It's either hot or it's cold. It's not boiling and it's not freezing. It is hot and it's cold. You could say like, oh, cool or whatever, but from warm, you can either go to hot or you can go to cold, right? And if it's saying not far, you know how when you play like hot and cold as a kid, like you hid something, somebody's going to look for it, and you're like, oh, you're getting colder, you're getting colder. That means you're getting farther away. So if he's saying it's not far, then that means that we would imply that it's hot. So we have to begin it where warm waters halt and take it in the canyon down, and that's going to be telling us an area that is hot. And it's also going to jive with but too far to walk. So we're looking for something hot and something that would connect those two lines together, and at the end it would be somewhere that is put in below the home of brown, and it would make it apparent, if that makes sense. But yeah, anyways, who else would be finding? All right, let me see what else is going on. My phone just ended up dinging at me that how many blazes can you spot in the book? None. I don't try to find a blaze. So what I ended up doing is just setting aside the maps, right? Because what I was doing is I was reading the poem and I was finding areas on a map to make it work, right? It's like, oh, this makes sense for where warm waters halt, that must be the canyon down. Oh, look right here, at a decent distance, there's a place that's named Brown, blah, blah, blah. It's got to be in, Colorado, or it's got to be in Wyoming, or it's got to be in Montana. You could make it work literally anywhere. I could make the solve work in my own state that I live in. So what I did is I wiped my brain, I got rid of the maps, and I just read the poem. I read the poem and try to figure out what it's telling me, and after I have that figured out, then I apply it to the area that it was telling me on a map. So I apply it to a map after I've figured out the poem. Instead of using a map to figure out the poem, I apply it to a map after figuring out the poem, but not look at them consecutively together, or not be scrolling through maps while I'm reciting the poem in my head. So I don't have a search state, I don't have a search area, I don't have anything. I'm literally just trying to do what the poem is telling me to do, if that makes sense. And I also think that the poem is very, very deep. Like, that is it's kind of like I don't know, it is a very insightful poem. And the first couple times I read it, I was like, this is just gibberish. This is nonsense. It's just words put together. And then I was like, well, maybe maybe it needs to be legitimately followed. Maybe he's saying, maybe where warm waters halt is a place and canyon down is a place and not far but too far to walk is a description of the distance, and then, home of brown is a place, and so on and so forth. No place for the meek is given a description of stuff that happened in the past. The end is ever drawing nigh, letting you know that it's coming near or whatever. And then, but it didn't help me at all. It was making no difference as to if I was reading the poem like directions. But then once I started reading the poem like a message, I was like, holy crap, there's just and I know a lot of people don't agree with me, but the messages in the book are very freaking profound. The poem is very profound. The hidden meanings in the book are very profound. The stuff that Forrest is subtly telling you is very profound. And, for there being 149 pages, I think, 147 pages, that is not a big book. And there's a lot of pictures in here. So it's even smaller of a book once you consider the pictures. For there to be 147 pages in this book is very insightful and profound and meaningful, and is almost like changes the way that you think if you actually read and understand what it's saying. And overpriced. I'll agree with that. I do think it's overpriced, but at the same time, it is what it is. It was supposed to be in limited production. So treasure books. I'm not sure if you guys are into. The reason why I found out about the Forrest Fenn treasure is because of researching treasure legends. I'd researched legends from the Spanish and the Jesuits and, the old miners and caches that were long lost and blah, 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 and all this and all that. And I spend hours and hours a day freaking metal detecting and all that. Treasure hunting is a very tight-knit, small community, and products that were developed for it, especially books, sell for a lot of money. All right, I froze again. But the Treasure magazine, like a nationwide magazine that was popular during the 60s when metal detecting first became a thing. Those issues go for a lot of money now. Some of the treasure hunting books or the treasure legend books that were written by, certain people back, 30, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, those are worth a lot of money. They're collector's items. So when you put it in context of that, like $35 really isn't too bad of a book. But yeah, just hold on. All right, my phone is going to die anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and hop off. My daughter just came in here crying about bedtime, so I'm going to go ahead and hop off. And it was good to chat with you guys. So other than that, have a good night, and go ahead and leave me your comments. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. There's like 40 people watching right now, so that lets me know like a lot of you guys probably aren't subscribers. So yeah, if you could go ahead and subscribe to my channel, go ahead and like my videos, leave me your comments. Feel free to email me at fenntreasurethoughts.com. And just real quick before I let you guys go, I do want to take this channel, I want to take it to the next step and be able to provide you guys like good content. So like getting the tools that I need so I can have interviews and stuff, with people like Arrowhead Junction or even my viewers that want to see it. Start getting stuff to have like intros and outros or, whatever, just something that isn't, just a piece of garbage like thrown together at last minute. Because on top of the Forrest Fenn hunt, I'm not sure if you guys remembered me telling you, I'm going to start talking about a lot of my other research that I've done prior to the Forrest Fenn. And I plan on going, state by state and discussing the treasure legends that were that are associated with that state, along with some of the history behind it and why I believe that they are, legitimate or fake. So that's where I'm trying to go. So I do appreciate you guys supporting me, pretty much the same people that watch all my live streams. You guys are here every single time I come on, and I think that's awesome. So I wanted to give you guys a little heads up of what I'm trying to do, and then, yeah, hopefully it'll get to that point. But enough of that. I've been on for an hour. It's bedtime, so have a good night, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys later.